I stood in the training room, gazing at my reflection in the mirror. My cheeks were flushed naturally, my hips and chest were fuller, and my hair shone brightly. Chapter 37. I was enveloped in warmth. The source was unclear. It could have been the silken sheets caressing my bare skin, or Luca's protective arm draped around my waist. Perhaps it was the sunlight streaming through the gaps in the curtains of Luca's bedroom, bathing us in its golden glow. In truth, I couldn't pinpoint the exact cause. What I did know was that Luca, my passionate mate, was slumbering peacefully beside me. His face was serene, chest exposed, while I lay there with cheeks aflame. The intensity of my blush was such that I could feel my pulse throbbing against my skin. How was I supposed to act normally after the events of last night? Despite the looming threat switches on my trail, the Western people held captive by a queen's tyranny, and Kate's worrying silence since it left her to celebrate Luca's birthday, here I was, fretting over what to say to my newly mated partner. I sat up, clutching the covers to my chest as I gazed down at Luca. Last night, he had been beastly towards anyone who approached him, a testament to his protective nature, but in the soft light of morning, he looked utterly peaceful. The sight brought an irrepressible smile to my face, one that only brightened when he unconsciously pulled me closer in his sleep. Sighing contentedly, I raised my hand to run it through his hair, gently scratching his scalp. He purred, leaning further into my touch, his affectionate nature evident even in slumber. "Good morning," I thought. Maybe that would be a suitable icebreaker. Or perhaps, "Do you want breakfast?" What the fuck? What the fuck? Breakfast? My teeth clenched as I berated myself for such mundane thoughts. Without further deliberation, I rose, showered, and donned a pair of his shorts and a shirt. They were perfect for cooking, but certainly not appropriate for venturing beyond his chambers. My armor was back in 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐷𝐞𝐝 office, and my red dress lay in tatters on the floor. I'd have to rely on Luca to solve that particular problem. As quietly as possible, I slipped out of his room and into the kitchen. I prepared eggs, seasoning them with northern spices, and conjured an array of cheeses for a platter. To complete the meal, I squeezed fresh oranges, pouring the juice into 2 glasses for us to share. Barely 2 minutes later, a frantic Luca burst through his bedroom door, clad only in shorts. His eyes, those mesmerizing blue orbs, locked onto mine, flooding with relief as he found me safe and sound. He shook his head. "Luca, I thought you disappeared again." I frowned. I wouldn't leave without saying goodbye. "Luca." I placed the food platter onto the coffee table of the living room, dusting my palms, especially after last night. He sighed and wrapped his arms around me, the warmth of his bare skin seeping into mine. "Don't leave me, Leela." I couldn't respond. If I didn't leave, it would be selfish of me to put Luca and the entire castle in danger for the sole satisfaction of my desire. Never, never in a million years would I allow myself to smile against the lives of thousands, if not millions. "Luca," I began, "let's eat." He sighed, ignoring me and instead capturing my lips in his, my chin in his fingers. I melted into him, just grazing his pecs and hand rising to wrap around his neck. He brushed his fingers into my wet hair, pulling at the strands and forcing a moan out of my lips. "There's that sound, Luca." His eyes were cloudy, filled with thoughts. "More." I shook my head, strands moving. "I made you breakfast." His grip on me tightened, forcing a rush of heat up my core. "And I love you for that." A torrent for fluffy emotions took up the holes of my heart, and I smiled, looking away from him. He grabbed my chin and forced me to look back at him, pecking my lips one last gracious time. He pulled away, leaving me stunned, and sat on the couch where he began chewing on some bread and cheese. "Are you not going to join me?" My lips parted. "Come on." "I'm not finishing this myself," Leela added. My head snapped to the sound of Kate's voice, eyes widening. "I went looking for you. Everywhere," she shouted at me, clenching the fabric of her black skirt And to find out 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐩 out on some romantic expedition is absolutely, infuriating. A stray leaf fell off the top of her head as I stilled, watching dirt roll of her top. I gulped. How in the world did she get here? Put your mask back on. For goodness sake, put some proper clothes on, she roared, throwing my armor onto the couch. Goddess, the Westerners are being held hostage and the queen which has your name on the tip of her tongue. Yet here you are fornicating with your male. Seething, he trushed up my cheeks. The witch with the power to unite to lovers. Luca stood up, a smug smile on his wonderful lips. It is with great pleasure I meet you. Kate stared at Luca, eyes wide at the sight of his bare chest, and gulped. In regard to the West, I can assure you we have it under control. Luca began as he walked to my side, muscles on his chest swaying like water. We sent 9 spies that swore an oath to refresh us on the situation over there. If the queen wrongfully murders anyone, they will bring me her body alive. She murdered her husband. Luca. I let out a stressed breath, instinctively linking my arm through his. Who knows what 𝐶h's capable of? Correction. She cursed him with old age. Luca stared down at me. The Queen of Witches helped her construct the potion. 𝐻ES not dead. 𝐻ES very ill. An O formed on my lips. What do you think we should do? King, Kate asked. Brows risen. I choked on my spit. Easy there. Luca rubbed my back, his warmth seeping through his shirt. Goddess. He looked so smug. That's what I was thinking. Kate added. Is it really that simple? To go to war. I spoke through teary eyes, rubbing at my chest. How will we fight thousands of witches? Monsters. Darling. Kate pulled out my swords from the pocket of her skirt. Your army finished their task. They're waiting for their next command. My lips parted in awe and my chest burst with affection at my little monsters. Your army. Luca rose a brow. Mind if you update me? I smiled sheepishly at him and his eyes rushed to my lips. It's a long story, hobby, and I have time. He stepped into my personal space, chest brushing against mine. For you, I have everything. Please do not act so hopelessly in front of me. Kate coughed. We had a plan. After telling Luca that a lichen could own the soul of a monster by puncturing the back of its neck, it seemed as though all forms of stress left every fiber of his body. He grabbed me by the neck and harmoniously met my lips with his own. It seemed as though he cowed and stopped himself from doing that, kissing me. I had no objections. Every time a stressful thought passed by my brain, he would place his hand on the back of my neck and pull me to him. For the first time in forever, I didn't mind someone being in my head. It was actually comforting, almost like a reassuring embrace. And as of now, that was what I needed the most. Reassurance. Reassurance from the man that turned my world of ashes into a world of synchronized fire. The man that made me look at the color of violet and smile. I was currently stood in the training room, surrounded by hundreds of weapons made of the most authentic iron, wood and gold. Some of the weapons were even made of diamonds, but it didn't feel right to use a jewel so pure for a purpose so graphic. I grabbed iron swords the length of half my thighs and slid them through the slits on the back of my armor, enjoying the way they formed a pleasing X. I took to silver daggers and placed them on my thighs. Once ready, I walked to the mirror and asked myself. It would be a lie if I say I recognized myself. A natural blush stained my cheeks, both my hips and chest. My thighs were evidently fuller and my hair shone. It shone even when the sun was down and the sight made my heart flutter. Never had I considered myself beautiful, but as of that day, I could confidently state that I was beautiful. Gorgeous even. I sighed and turned around, ready to meet Luca outside the castle along with Kate. Our plan was to capture 6 monsters by the end of the week. The East-est goal was for 150. The North-est goal was 6. The South goal was 650. Goddess. Those Southerners. Always outdoing themselves. I wasn't complaining. Really? But my pride ought to beat that. All we needed were 7 monsters to even out the field. But Luca insisted on having a minimum of 2,000. In a sense, He was right, it was better to be safe than sorry. But I feared the witches would notice the number of monsters going missing in battle without warning. It was such a stress-inducing time, but I was sure with Luca I would look back onto those days and smile. We won a war together. My smile strengthened as I reached the set of double doors guiding me to the exit. We won a war together. I opened the door and locked hands with both Kate and Luca, ready to be teleported back to her cozy cottage. Remember, keep your eyes closed or you'll barf the minute you land on my property. Kate tightened her grip on my hand. All right, girlie. I nodded, sending her a wink. She rolled her eyes and turned to Luca. All right, male. What a nice way to address your king. Luca's nostrils flared. Ugh, Kate scoffed. Males. I wheezed and Luca kicked me in the shin for doing so. The second Kate began chanting in a foreign language. I shut my eyes and tightened my grip on both beings' hands, feeling a sense of fullness in my chest. In a way, Kate and Luca filled the hole I thought could never be filled with their presence. And I appreciated it in a way I can't describe in mundane words. A wave of whiplash later, my eyes flew open to the sight of carpeted, mahogany wood floors. The smell of warm milk crushed up my nostrils as I spoke. Oh, Kate. Oh, Kate. I can already smell the hot chocolate. It's the green-eyed girl. Bring me her body breathing. An old voice screamed from behind me. With my hand on the dagger on my thigh, I spun. A witch. 2 of them. A hand wrapped around my throat, restricting my ability to breathe. I roared. Chapter 38. I roared like it was my last day alive. With so much strength my eyes shone a vine green and my body laced with tremor. Never had I experienced something so ferocious in my 18 years of living. Never. Without a second thought I slammed my head backwards and spun, grabbing the arm of my captor. With all my power I pulled downwards, tearing the ugly witch's ligaments and kneeing her in the stomach. If there was one thing I inherited from father, it was his reflex. And I wouldn't change it even if it meant I lost an eyeball. King, grab the blonde bitch. He'll focus on the 4-year-old. Kate shouted as coil-like strings of fire extended from her arm and wrapped around the oldest witch's throat. Luca did not need to be told twice as he growled and shifted into his raven-haired wolf, not giving him a second glance. I focused on my witch. She was the youngest one, a perfect fit for my experience in fighting her kind. It endured several of her demographic at age 14, 16, and can proudly state, I mastered the art of battling her. I slid my sword from my back as she began ripping strands of hair from her head, readying herself to perform a reality warp spell, the most dangerous kind. How stupid. Only witch his age to attempt such a spell. I spun my sword in my hand and slammed it into her thigh. Hating the way her scream brought me satisfaction, she doubled forward, blood seeping through her lips. I have your face in my head. Girl, she croaked as the witch behind her screamed at the pressure of Luca's teeth on her neck. Don't make me. I need her in the face. Watching as she fell back, just as I was about to straddle my witch's hips, ready to slam my dagger into her heart. A hand snatched me backwards by my hair and onto my bum. I cried out in pain as my head slammed into the floor, vision blurring for the smallest of moments. Show me your face. Wolf. The oldest witch's face was an eyesore. Get that mask off. She grabbed my mask, but I didn't give her the chance to remove it, for I bit her wrinkly finger till I heard it crunch beneath my teeth. The taste of copper filled my mouth and bile made its way up my throat. The bitch screamed like there was no tomorrow. O God of the outskirts, I command you to shit. Shit. If she completed that sentence, I would be hers. I rose my arms, wrapped them around her neck and pulled her head downwards, effectively slamming it onto my own. It hurt. It hurt so bad, but it worked. Her eyes watered and she fell beside me. You bitch, she wheezed, coughing out blood. Not giving it a second thought, I rose my dagger-holding hand and slammed it into her chest, praying to the goddess that it made it to her heart. I jumped to my feet, ignoring the torrent of dizziness that slammed into and went back to my young witch. She laid on the ground, body limp and eyes open, yet her heart was beating. Grabbing her by the hair, I pulled upwards and punctured her neck with my dagger. She would be mine. She would give me answers. and once she was done giving me answers, I would feed her black heart to my monsters. Once done, I threw her body onto Kate's leather couch and turned around to face a stunned Kate and the baffled Luca. I croaked, shrugging aggressively. Goddess, was I dizzy? I don't know whether to be aroused or to be fearful. Luca gulped, armor clinging onto his sculpted body. It'd be both if I were you. Kate readjusted her coat as she spoke. Why were they so dull? I asked, running a stressed hand through my hair. Usually I have to pass some tester maze before fighting them. My house's glamour ed to stop all spells except my own from working. Kate poured hot chocolate into 3 large mugs. If that was you would have either lost or one severely injured. Why do you think I'm stressed? Kate. I rubbed my erratic chest. Luca pulled me to him by my waist. I've an idea. You share? Kate walked over the witch's dead body and placed the tray of hot chocolate-filled mugs onto the coffee table. We puncture the necks of enough witches. I don't like the idea. Kate interrupted. My pride is suffering enough having my soul owned by an 18-year-old lichen. He trushed up my cheeks as I fell back onto the couch, right next to Luca. Just listen, he growled, alpha complex rushing to the surface. We do this to glamour lichens from witches' spells. At least enough lichens. Kate stilled. It's not a bad idea, I added quietly. She took a long sip of the searing drink, eyeing Luca and I with inexplicable emotion in her eyes before sighing. To you. What? Luca furrowed his brows. It's not a bad idea to you. She tightened her grip on the glass in her hand. To us witches, our pride and mystic freedom is on the line. Our art will be willfully controlled by you two. And that is not something that sounds like a good idea to us. My smile fell. How inconsiderate of us. My cheeks flushed as I turned to face Luca, who seemed completely mundane, unaffected to what Kate had just said. What an alpha. I soughed before turning to face Kate, who remained circling her ringed fingers. Do to others what you want done to you, I said, exposing my wrist to Kate, whose eyes widened. Right. Leela, we're putting your mystic freedom on the line. So why don't you put my own as well? A truce. It might even convince some witches to join our clan. I suggested. Clan. Kate rose her brows. Clan, tribe, whatever you like to call it. I went to scoot closer to Kate, but Luca wrapped an arm around me, setting me in place. A warmth filled me, warmth that was accompanied by annoyance. Would you like to elaborate? Luca asked through flared nostrils. Or are you going to sell your soul to a witch while I watch blindfolded? My jaw slacked. Luca, you big got. In not selling my soul. In merely giving Kate the ability to control my wolf. Same thing. No, it's not the same thing. I sighed in frustration, balling my hands into fists. I aren't shift into my wolf as much as you do. Just not much use to me. Though if I overstep any boundaries regarding Kate's magic, she can warn me using my wolf. Luca's lips parted, eyes widening. When was the last time you shifted into your wolf? I gulped. The day I brought the witch into the castle. That's not too long ago, Kate said, sitting forward. Yes, but before that I hadn't shifted for 2 years. Fuck. Luca ran a stressed hand down his face. Leela, that can't be. You're going to rot if you keep your wolf under your skin. Especially if you don't even speak to her. What? My eyes snapped to Lucas. But I don't understand. Sweetheart, have you noticed yourself weakening throughout the years? Lucas pulled me closer to him, frustrated. Have you noticed that you take longer to finish fights? That your muscles ache more? That you dizzy far more than you should? My cardiac rhythm accelerated, yes. But that could also be because I haven't been training as much as I should be. He shook his head. No, Leela. It's because you're 𝐖𝐨𝐷𝐤 wolf. Your wolf is your source of strength. She's your core. Without her you're going to turn human, or worse. I tensed and Luca noticed. There's no need to worry. There's wolves that survived 7 years under the skin. You just need to train. A grin made its way to his lips. It'll do the job for you. that diminished all forms of stiffness from my body. Training with Luca. Just the thought of training with my male made my knees bounce and my heart flutter. So the effects are definitely reversible? I asked, staring him in the eyes. He sat there, eyes on my lips as he nodded. Immediately a blush made its way to my cheeks, forcing me to look away from his smug expression. So he said, Kate tried controlling her smile. I own the soul of your wolf and you own the soul of my people. I nodded, raising the sleeve of my armor. Kate grabbed a knife, slit both of our wrists and connected them, binding our souls together for eternity. I prayed that it wouldn't be a decision I regretted in the near future, but it was the only way Kate would have full faith in Luca and I. In the end, the moon goddess functioned on karma, and if Kate decided to wrong me, the moon's wrath would find its way back to her. The moon always found its way back to its children. Chapter 39. I find it incredibly irresponsible that you signed that blood oath. 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐩𝐭, Luca held fury in his blue orbs. You put your heart in her very hands, in a witch's hands, all because she felt sorrow for her fellow sisters, the sisters that want your very head on a stick and a stake in your heart. Luca, there was no way she was going to gain my trust if I hadn't. There was no way other witches would join our army without the knowledge that my wolf is bound to one. I shook my head, forcing myself to look up at him. It was the right decision, and I don't regret it. I never will. Luca looked down at me, nostrils flared as he clenched his fist. It was the first time I'd seen such controlled chaos. Do you not care for yourself? He all but whispered. Do you have no value for your life? My lips parted. 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐻, you gave your wolf's soul to that witch. It's bad enough you don't even have a relationship with her. But what do you think your wolf would feel when you speak to her knowing full well you just gave her away? Luca took a step towards me. His steps quiet, but his expression anything. She will be furious. She may even turn you rogue. She wouldn't, you don't even know her 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐻. His voice forced the outskirts trees to sizzle in submission. I do. I swallowed. More than you do. That's for sure. For once in your life. 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐻, be selfish. Stop killing yourself for the sake of others. Why is it so easy for you to let yourself go? Luca cupped my neck with his hands, evoking light-hot fire to erupt in my veins. Do you not see what you're doing to me? My wolf wants to shove his bare teeth in Teet's neck every time he hears her footsteps outside of that door. He wants her dead. He wants everyone who forces you to make such decisions gone. And if that means he has to kill the entire kingdom, he will. And the only one stopping him. And I don't even know if I want to anymore. The strings of my heart pulled painfully at his words. He looked down at me as though I were a singularity, a miracle. Something so unbelievable it scared him. His eyes flickered, as though he were looking into my own for any sign of regret. But I'm sure he didn't find any because I didn't regret the blood oath. I didn't and I never would. Luca, he pulled my neck towards him and slammed my lips onto his. All my tautness melted into his warmth as our lips moved against one another. Everything 𝐿𝐸𝐲 to exist. Too soon. He pulled away, eyes watery and hands almost gripping my neck. It was almost as if he was watching my disappear, slipping through his fingers with no way of coming back. 𝐿𝐸𝐲, my heart cannot handle this. He took in a deep breath, letting go of my neck. I sense that your heart has made its 𝐿𝐸𝐲𝐻, and I cannot convince you to think otherwise. But 𝐿𝐸𝐲, if you come out of this battle dead, so will everyone else. My brows furrowed. What do you mean? I will skin every last wolf alive if you die trying to save their humanity. Am I understood? My heart turned erratic in its beats at his words. And do not doubt my words. 𝐿𝐸𝐲, I speak nothing but the truth. I gulped. What could I have said to him? That I would come out of this alive. That everything was going to be okay once I faced the mother of all witches. Nothing about my prophecy guaranteed my livelihood. Absolutely nothing. But I was still willing to take the risk. Without question. In fact, even if my death was guaranteed, I would have regretted not fulfilling the prophecy. Luca's eyes were still looking down at me in their sea-filled glory. and I could tell by the pursing of his lips that he had heard my thoughts. "I will wait for you, 𝐊𝐲." He laid a chaste kiss to my forehead, forcing my arms to wrap around the length of his waist. "But I will not watch humanity wait for you to save them. You did not ask for this." I laid my head on his chest, suddenly feeling the urge to cry oceans apart. Luca was the only reason I wanted to come out of this alive, and if it weren't for him, I would have welcomed death with every battle I faced. It scared me. Everything about the way he made me feel scared me. My dependency on him and his warmth made me want to run out of his arms, but I knew I couldn't. "Imagine," I began, voice cracking, "if none of this was real, and I was simply the Alpha's guard. Imagine us trying to keep our bond a secret while your mother tried mating you 200s of princess ace you would only reject. Imagine us fighting alongside one another without worrying that one of us may die at the hands of a witch nobody knows even exists." I sniffed into his chest. "We would have been so happy, so at peace. Luca, is that too much to ask for? A life with you." He wrapped his arms around my shoulders, digging his nose into the top of my head. "I would want nothing more than to tell the whole world in yours. I would want nothing more than to sleep to the sight of your beauty and wake up to the sound of your heartbeat." A sob erupted from my chest, one I cowed in control and one I didn't want to control. I was done trying to control myself. My entire life, I have been controlling myself. For 6 years I did nothing but control myself. Just when I had found the one person that filled the hole mother left behind, the moon had decided not to take him away from me, but to take me away from him. So I was done. What exactly being done entailed, even I did not know. But I was done. So I let myself cry into Luca's chest for hours on end. I rid myself of the invisible ropes my brain held me with and told Luca how much I loved him. I told Luca how he was the only reason I wanted to come out of this war alive. I told him how much he made me want to live in a world where I wanted nothing but to die. And he listened, and listened, and listened, until I had no more words to speak. Chapter 40. 𝐊𝐲. "𝐊𝐲." Luca's voice, my swelling eyes open. Luca was in his armor pants, shirtless as his frantic eyes looked down at me. "What's wrong?" I grumbled, rubbing my eyes. "Have you gone insane?" "Kate's gone." My heart fell out of my chest at his words. She left a note on the table, but no matter what I do, I cannot get near it. I think she 𝐊𝐲𝐼 at it. "You got to try to get that open." Without a thought in my head, I jumped out of bed, no shoes on my feet, wearing nothing but shorts and a shirt. I felt nothing but pure panic, as though my whole world was crumbling right in front of my very eyes. Was Luca right? Did Kate take control of my wolf only to leave me for dead? I stumbled out of the bedroom and into the living room, and lo and behold, a wax-sealed letter laid perfectly still on the coffee table. It was as though the letter was staring back at me, a comical expression on its face. I wanted nothing else than to rip it into 1,000 shreds. My heart could not handle another betrayal, and if Kate really took advantage of my kindness in such a grotesque manner, I would rather live in naivety. "Luca." I swallowed down an array of emotions. "Whatever the letter says, I don't want to hear a word about how I sold my wolf to a witch who ended up breaking me. Am I understood?" Luca's jaw ticked, but he nodded nonetheless. If anything, he knew what I was feeling. He knew how robust my regret was. Our bond was screaming with it. "Breathe, 𝐊𝐲," I told myself. "Just breathe." With shaking hands, I picked up the letter. She wouldn't do that. "Luca." I was convincing myself more than I was convincing him. "She can't. She hated the queen. She hated." "Open the letter, 𝐊𝐲," he interrupted. "The only way we will find out is if you open it. So please, just do it." Memories of my captivity in the outskirts of my head and I couldn't push them back. If Kate really left to join our enemy, then my wolf would be hers. And if my wolf was hers, I was hers. And if I was hers, I was a prisoner of the outskirts, with bile rising up my throat. I opened the letter. "Dear 𝐊𝐲, urgent matters have come to my aid. If everything goes as planned, I will be back by midnight. Fear not. I have glamour-ed myself so that other witches are unable to see me. So do not worry about anyone even thinking about what you look like. The queen bitch will never find you. Keep an eye out on the birds. And make sure your phoenixes is near you. Word has come about that the mother of all witches has full control over the West. She is in their heads, making them relive their worst memories over and over again. That is all for now. Please, 𝐊𝐢𝐧𝐷𝐞𝐬, keep an eye out on the birds. 𝐵 is the only way you can make sure you are alive and not in the queen's hands. I will speak of my matters when I am back. For now, I am unable to. 𝐊𝐢𝐧𝐠, Caitlin. At the sight of 𝐊𝐢𝐳 laying on a tree branch right outside the cottage, I let out a much-needed breath. My muscles relaxed. The hairs on my arms lowers and my heart calmed. She's coming back at midnight. I sat on the coffee table, legs shaking far too much to bear my weight. She had urgent matters to deal with, and she'll tell us when she's back. At midnight. Okay, Luca lowered himself so his eyes leveled with my own. You can calm down now. Everything is all going as planned. His hand caressed my thighs, squeezing at the areas intense. Calm down. Verdi, I can hear your heart beat all the way here. When I'm here, nobody is going to touch you. I let out a shaky breath, nodding at his words of assurance. I just need to ask you a question. I pointed to 𝐿𝐢𝐳, who was peacefully resting her eyes. Can you see that phoenixes? The one right outside the window. Yes, why? He answered with furrowed brows. Oh, thank the goddess. My head fell into my hands. Thank the goddess. Talk to me. 𝐿𝐢𝐳. Luca's eyes seemed so concerned. But I didn't have it in me to tell him that there was a chance my soul would be captured by the queen of all witches. I didn't have it in me to break his heart another time, to worry him more so than he already is. So I lied. I just thought it was beautiful, I said, and the look on his face was enough to force me into a dark hole of self-destruction. He knew I was lying, but he didn't push me any farther than I wanted to be pushed, and I appreciated that. I really did. How about we train, huh? Let's try and talk to your wolf. His eyes were kinder than his words. Let's get out of here for a bit. Not too far, though. The last thing we need is to spar with a six-headed beast not even the goddess can fathom. A chuckle escaped my sorrowful soul. I think it like that. I cupped his wonderfully sculpted face in my hands, relishing in the absolute warmth his skin held. If like anything, as long as you're with me. Luca laid a soft kiss on my forehead, melting me in his arms. Get up then. Enough of this. You're much to come off our table. I leaned my head against his chest, surprised at how he still towered over me despite him being on the fucking ground. So I think not. Are you sure about that? I nodded into his chest, unable to form words. You've left me no choice. Luca placed his arms underneath my thighs and hoisted me upwards, eliciting a shriek out of me as his put my over his shoulders. Luca, you arse. Put me down. He shut me up by smacking my own arse. After a solid 10 minutes of being held upside down, Luca finally set me back on my feet in Kate's back ward filled with various pots holding various plants which may or may not have been poisonous. There was also a cauldron laying behind the pots, but we thought it was best not to question whatever may have been hiding in there. The outskirt winds were gracing our skin, and for the first time in my 6 years of being held captive there, I found it quite serene therapeutic, if I may. When was the last time you spoke to your wolf? 𝐿𝐢𝐳, Luca asked as he wrapped his arms around my waist from behind. In fact, I would like to know what she looks like. Anything. Tell me all about her. I know Luke wants to know what she looks like. Well, I began. She's for the color of auburn, like the mahogany doors your castles are filled with. I fiddled with his fingers. She has bright green eyes much brighter than mine, and she's faster than whiplash. Luca, 𝐿𝐢𝐳𝐷𝐞𝐬. You should have seen her when Slayman and I came her to get the witch. If it wasn't for her that day, I wouldn't be alive. If anything, she's ethereal. Luke wants to meet her, but he can't seem to connect with her. Simply imagining her makes him feel emotions that make it difficult for me to control him. He is that excited, isn't he? Well, when you wait 85 years to find your mate, you can imagine how impatient a wolf can be. Leela. I spun around, gasping. You're 85 years old. He nodded unbothered, running two fingers down my cheek. Indeed I am. Well, I just didn't expect you to be almost 70 years older than me. If it helps, I am the youngest king to ever exist. He bent over to pick up a rock, laying peacefully on the ground. Most reign when they are at least 200. Does my age make you uncalm of our table? I thought about it. He was well over half my age. He lived 6 more times than I did. And the fact that he did brought over me an odd sense of comfort. Maybe it was the fact that I was only 18. Confused and always feeling 100 different emotions. But I liked that he was older than me. It explained why and how he was always so patient with me, how he always managed to calm of me. It docent. I let out. I always. Not even a second later the rock was hurtling towards me, spinning as thought it were moving thousands of miles per hour. My vision blurred. And suddenly, everything slowed down, everything other than me. I grabbed the rock before it slammed into me and the world became normal again. What the fuck was that for? I almost shouted. His pupils dilated at the sight of me. Luca. I furrowed my brows. What in the moon goddess's name was the for? You should see your eyes right now. 30. He spoke in awe as he walked towards me. Look, with both of his hands on my shoulders. He turned me around so that I faced the window. Green. My eyes were a bright green as though they were pools of bioessence. My lips parted at the sight of my wolf's eyes, and for unfeeling filled my chest, a feeling so robust I had to rub the area above my heart. Was it pride? I think it was. Your wolf is protecting you even when you're not with her chest with you. Listening to every word and calculating every move you make. Luca ran an impressed hand down his face. Leela, I have never seen anyone move with such speed. It was like you were light. My cheeks warmed. You can continue. I smiled at him, tucking an embarrassed strand of hair behind my ear. No, really. Please continue. Leela, this is serious. I've never seen anything like it. Not to mention you haven't shifted in years. I was ready to catch that rock for you right after I threw it. Luca said as he wrapped an arm around me. I knew you were special. I knew it the day I met you. And for that, I thank the moon goddess every day for making me wait such a long time for you. Luca, I smacked his chest. I can only handle so much love. You know how much I detest it. Your bond says otherwise. My love. I smacked him for a second time that day. Am less afraid now. If you're this strong when you haven't shifted years before your altercation the last time you were here, imagine how strong you could be when you can fully shift. He scratched the back of his neck. I've got an idea. Tripart, shifting. I just need you to get a claw to come out. A shriek interrupted Luca's epiphany, forcing the both of us to look up. It was 𝐴𝐼 slicing through the thick atmosphere like a knife right above us. Her shriek, however, was followed by a small quake on the ground, and that small quake on the ground is followed by a complete rattling of the soil we stood on. Leela, Luca uttered. Get inside. Right now. The ground shook once more. I'm not leaving you for dead. We're both getting inside. Right now. I grabbed Luca by the wrist and pulled him inside Kate's cottage, locking the backyard door behind me. From my knowledge of the outskirts, those were definitely outskirt beasts. I could tell just by their scents. And it was just one, but tens of them, probably hundreds. My heart turned erratic in its beats. The only thing calming me down was Luca's hand caressing my wrist. If it wasn't for him, I would have probably gone into cardiac arrest at the rhythm of my heart. Luca, we need to leave. Right now. We're fresh meat if we stay here. I can fight off 3 at once. And even if I do, I can't guarantee I will come out of that fight with all 4 of my limbs. I grabbed my armor and swords from the basket Kate had given me to store my things. Put your armor on. And fast. Every second counts. He did as he was told. We both changed out of our clothes and into our armor in complete silence, afraid that any move we could make could attract whatever was coming our way even more. When Luca was ready, I laid a finger to my lips and pointed to the door, gesturing for him to keep as quiet as possible and for us to leave. He nodded and followed after me, armor on and a dagger each hand. I was terrified, but I was ready. Knowing my wolf would be there to protect me in the moments I needed her made me itch to fight. It made me crave killing whatever beast was coming just so that I could have my wolf feast on them. That craving vanished. However, when I turned around and found an avalanche of beasts, each one biggest than the other, walking right behind us. Some were running on all fours. Others were walking on an even length of feet. Nothing about them told me to stay. All until my eyes landed on their leader, who held a shiny object in its hand. My dagger. And I halted in my footsteps, evoking Luca to look at me as though I had signed my death wish. He grabbed my arm, pulling me to run with him, but I snatched my hand from him. I didn't want to be wrong and be the cause of Luca's death, so I signaled for him to stay. He shook his head vigorously, urging for us to leave before the army got too close. If you go out there, we go together. If anything happens to you, I am a dead man. It doesn't make a difference. He spoke through our bond. Just don't get too close. Luca, if you're getting close, I'm getting close. I let out a stressed breath and intertwined my fingers with Lucas, holding them so tightly I was afraid I was causing him pain. Even if the beasts were part of my army, a large part of me was scared to get too close to them. They were the reason I spent most of my childhood bloodied and bruised, hiding and hungry. To me, they were the devil incarnate. One look at them caused my mind to drown in memories of fear so powerful my legs quivered and my blood turned cold. But I had to face them, and shaking my hands with the devil was the only way to win this war. So I had no other choice. Luca and I got out of hiding and stepped into the outskirts, purple light giving the beasts full view of us. But none of them were looking at Luca. Every single one of them was looking at me, and only me. I wanted nothing but to hide, to run into Luca's arms and stay there till my last breath. But I couldn't. Fear would not aid me in such a battle. As the monsters got closer, my grip on Luca's hand tightened. All I could smell was their wretched scent. All I could see was them. My brain turned foggy, so foggy that the first monster I had captured was suddenly in front of me and I did not know what to do. All I could do was stare back at it, so completely and utterly lost. But then it bowed, rattling the earth beneath him as he handed me my dagger. The rest followed it, mimicking hundreds of dominoes falling against one another until every 𝐶𝐿G, one of them were on one knee for me. I gulped, letting go of Luca's hand and walking forward. Rise, I ordered, watching as all of them followed my command. I need 5 more of you within the next 2 days. Go now. I threw all 6 swords I had strapped onto me onto the ground and watched as the first 6 in line scrambled to grab one each. Goddess, they really were beast. The sight of them was unruly. It was only when they left that I noticed Kate standing beneath the trees facing her cottage, analyzing the beast as they ran off to their next mission. She removed her cloak as she walked towards us, stress lining her forehead. Now that you've received the good news, I'm going to give you the bad news. She spoke, voice wary. Chapter 41. The Queen knows what you look like. Leela. 8 words, constantly swirling through my head. 8 words that would be the reason I would not get a blink of sleep until I had the Queen's head in my fangs. None of this was fair. None of it. I didn't even get the chance to train with Luca. My wolf was still recluded, unable to speak to me. None of this was what we had planned. All I had was me, my armor, and those damned green eyes Mother had cursed me with. Kate's cottage was beginning to shrink in its size, making it harder for me to catch my breath and forcing waves of robust dizziness through my entire being. For the first time in a while, I didn't know what to do. I had no fucking idea what was the next step in my comical idea of what saving humanity would be. Stressed, I panned my forehead with both hands. Was my dizziness the result of my panic? Or was it the Queen trying to get into my head? At that point, I didn't know. For fuck's sake. I didn't know anything, and I cowled and stopped thinking about the fact that I didn't know anything. I was the only woman who survived 6 years in the outskirts, the only wolf to ever reside in there for more than 2 weeks. And now I knew nothing. The worst part is, I didn't even know if I was living my own reality or living what the queen which wanted me to live. The only thing keeping me calm of RT was F.A., who was looking directly at me from outside the bedroom window. The bird who had my mother's name. Fuck. The entire world's fate depended on a bird with my mother's name on it. I began chuckling, and my chuckling soon turned into knee-slapping laughs I cowled and seemed to control. Luca tried talking to me through our bond, but I didn't have the strength to let him in. I didn't have the strength to let anyone in. If I were under the influence of the Mother Witch's magic, I could not afford to have her see him and what he looks like. Nobody else was going to die under my watch. But H.E.S. Luca. A voice whispered into my thoughts. H.E.S. hours. My head snapped upwards. Who was that? I spoke into the air. Did I care that Luca and Kate were probably listening to me laugh and have a conversation with myself? No. I just wanted all of this to be done, and if the queen was in my head trying to coddle me into seeing Luca, I was going to kill her myself. It's me, it whispered. Who the fuck is it? I was getting angrier by the second. My patience was thinning, and so was my strength to control my emotions. You're Wolf. How do I know it you and not? I swallowed down my fear. And not the queen. A shiver overcame my body as I felt painless little needles ooze out of my skin. Then my lips are ting at the sight of beautiful brown fur on my skin. Too soon. The fur subsided back into my body, leaving me feeling half full once again. The feeling was exhilarating and shockingly painless. Why are you talking to me now? I asked. Why now? You never needed me as much as you do now. I did need you. It came out as a whisper. I needed you so much more than I need you now. No, you didn't. Yes, no, you didn't. The voice growled. The voice growled, shoving the breath out of me. That was my wolf. There was no way in the world that was my wolf. Fuck. I ran my fingers through head, pulling at the ends. Oh fuck. It was already happening. She was in my head. She was right in there, having a conversation with me I certainly did not want to have with her. I shook with the force of 1,000 quakes, so much that I found it difficult to stand. The door slammed open, revealing a greatly stressed Luca. He rushed to my side, hands running on. Luca, I can't do this anymore. I croaked, just already in my head. I heard her through our bond. He said, worsening my panic, Luca, you need to leave the outskirts. It came out as a whisper. So long as you're here, you're just as vulnerable as I am. She doesn't want you. She wants me, but she'll use you to get to me. His eyes flashed a bright amber. There's no way in hell I'm leaving you to rot here. Leela. Luca. I shouted. Are you not listening to me? You cannot stay here. Stop thinking with your heart for 1 second. There's an entire kingdom that needs you right now. I can wait. My kingdom will wait so long you're alive. He growled, hands wrapping around the back of my neck. I'm not letting you slip through my fingers again. Not now. Not ever. I pushed him away from me, wiping my traitorous stares from my eyes. I am not having another loved one die because of me. Luca, I said, and if that means I have to force you out of here, I will. I went to leave the bedroom so that I could order Kate to send him back to the castle, only to have him grab my wrist and pull me back into his chest. I got you less than a month ago. That's not even 30 days. He tightened his hold on me, afraid to let me go. There's still so much I don't know about you, so much you don't know about me. Do not ask me to leave you because I won't. He was right. There were still so many things we hadn't explored with each others, so many things we hadn't done together. Yet here we were, on the edge of humanity bidding our farewells. Only the goddess knew how powerfully I mourned myself, how badly I pitied my sorry excuse of a life. "It's safer this way," I spoke into his chest, unable to face his eyes. "I cannot bear another loss. And I cannot bear losing you just when I've found you." I felt his pain throughout upon the complete and utter squeezing of his pure heart. I couldn't bear it any longer. Without a second thought, I pulled his lips to my own, allowing myself to relish in their sinful softness one last time. I kissed him like it was my last day alive, as though I were going to pass the minute his skin left my own. He met me with just as much for sour lips moving against one another like thousands of droplets of rain slamming into a mighty river. I need to feel him before he left. I needed to show him just how much he meant to me. Too soon. I pulled away. I had to make sure things didn't escalate farther than they needed to. "I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. Leela," he swallowed. "I will kill her before she sends me back to the castle. Even if you end up detesting me for what I am about to. I would rather you hate me with a beating heart than to love me 6 feet beneath the ground." My eyes lowered as I took a step backwards. "Kate, send him to the castle." Luca's growl shook the books on Kate's shelf onto the ground as he flashed his beautiful amber eyes at her. "I am sorry, Alpha, but I cannot disobey her." Kate positioned her hands as though she were holding an invisible orb between them. "Send him back home, where flowers grow and all things are known." Just as Luca was about to lunge at her eyes so feral my heart cracked, Kate pushed forward her invisible orb, turning his beautiful body into nothing but a million particles of stardust. Once again, I was alone, trapped in the untamed lands of the Lichen Kingdom. However, this time was different. I had an army so powerful they forced the outskirts soils to shake in their wake, an army so powerful it would overtake the Queen of the Witches and the Queen of the West. I swallowed down the bile rising in my throat and forced myself to look up at Kate through my tear-stained eyes. "Where is the witch?" My acquaintances in the outskirts told me she lived right at the center of these lands. She said she lives in the tall trees surrounded by beasts so ferocious not even her disciples can visit her. "We are going tomorrow," I ordered. "It's just already in my head. She knows where I am, so there's no point in waiting. Leela, you must know that I am no match for her." Kate warned. "You're not, but I am. Remember our blood oath. I've got a theory about that. And if it works, then we might have just guaranteed our winning of this battle." "Elaborate." "You have full control of my wolf." "Right, yes. Thus meaning that you can do absolutely anything you want with it. Am I correct?" "Indeed you are. Can you make her more powerful?" Kate's lips parted, shock swarming her pretty little eyes. "I could." She fluttered her fingers, excited. "I could even bring her out to you." "Great, great." I croaked, unable to control to sorrow over seeming my body at Luca's absence. "That's just wonderful. What do you recommend we begin with, dear?" Her eyes were pitiful as they ran over me, assessing the absolute mess I was. "Should we try calling out to her?" I nodded, lips quivering in the process. This was Luca's job. He was the one that was supposed to be training my wolf and I. He was the one that was supposed to heal my wounds after hours of training in the outskirts, kissing every single scar that littered my skin. Not Kate. It was supposed to be him. Only him. Gods. I wanted to rattle the stars with my screams. I wanted to break apart Kate's sorry excuse of a cottage. I wanted to force my wolf out of myself and turn rogue, unable to feel anything other than hunger and bloodshed. "I think calling out to her will take too long. I'd rather you make my shifts painless and much faster so I could do so more often." That was a lie. I knew Kate was powerful enough to call out to my wolf, but I did not fancy the idea of having another voice in my head. It was bad enough that the Queen was already conversing with me, trying to convince me that she was my wolf. I couldn't risk listening to anyone but myself. If that meant silencing my wolf, I would gladly do so. "Would you like to remove your armor? We don't want it ripping to shreds." Kate recommended no. "Laura crafted this armor so that when I shift, it molds to the body of my wolf." I ran 2 fingers down the bodice of the armor, suddenly missing the bright light that was Lara. "Okay," Kate nodded. "As you wish, darling." She took a few steps back from me, placing both palms forward so they faced my slightly shaking body. A gush of wind passed through my entire being. The air so cold it was actually refreshing. I shivered, finding the feeling that overcame me quite odd. "Done. Your shift should now be painless," she said, lowering her arms. "Trade out. We could head out into the backyard. I don't want more things falling out of their shells." Nodding, I made my way to the backyard, Kate following me suit. Fear flooded my veins at the thought of shifting once more, but I did not have time for fear. It had to be done even at the expense of my bones cracking a million times into places they should not be in the first place. So I began. I pictured my wolf in her beautiful brown fur. I pictured her pearly white fangs in all their 𝐊𝐢𝐳 glory. I pictured her running on all fours, forcing branches to break at the strength of her speed. Instead of cracking, my bones slid into place as needle-like structure began emanating from my skin. None of it felt natural. It was just as odd as it was painless, and I didn't know if I liked it. The smell of soil rushed up my nose just as the sound of birds hundreds of miles away 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐷rums. I was not used to being in my primal form. I was smelling and hearing everything too clearly. It was as though I were at war with nature. I whimpered, flinching at every sound that came my way. Finally, I opened my eyes, staring back at my reflection. Brown fur, bright green eyes, and a slender body. I was beautiful. How was it? I spun at whiplash speed at the sound of Kate's voice. Was it painless? Was it as you expected? I nodded, paws digging into the ground. Everything about my wolf seemed foreign, but I would have to force myself to accommodate to her physique. Should we make you faster? Make her bites any moves? Goddess, there's so much we can do. I nodded at her suggestions, itching to shift back into my human form. She did as I asked, whispering a slur of rhymes and pushing them into my soul. Immediately after she casted her spells, I felt heavier but all the more lighter, as if I weighed the force of 1,000 suns but soared like a bird moving through thin air. My hairs rose at the feeling, as did my ears. "Test it out, will you?" Kate ushered. "Run, not too far. Make sure you don't go past the tall trees. That's where my glamour ends." Without a second thought, I jumped over the fence and ran. I felt invincible, as though there was no way in the world anybody could catch me. I passed through several trees, my paws moving with so much speed I stopped seeing whatever was in front of me. The feeling was exhilarating. I felt alive for the first time in forever. I dodged several low branches with whiplash speed, jumped over fallen trees as though they were never there. Only the goddess knew how wonderful it felt. But my rush of adrenaline came to a halt once my eyes landed on the wall of tall trees. I forced myself to stop moving, drifting against the purple soil beneath me. For a moment, I simply sat there, watching the trees sway to the songs of the winds. I contemplated several things: whether I should have gotten so close to Luca, if I had any chance at winning this fantastical battle, and if the queen was listening to every thought in my head. So many questions, yet all of them laid unanswered, simply left to swirl in my head. Never had I felt so many emotions at once. Excitement, fear, loss, and hope. Hope was the only thing other than Luca stopping me from grabbing my daggers and stabbing myself in the neck. Hope that peace would finally be restored. Nobody would ever have to worry about the outskirts again, because my army will destroy any purple soil it tumbles upon. One day, when the queen is dead, green soil will rise in the untamed lands of the Lichen Kingdom, and the sun will peek through its great trees. No longer would it be a place of perish, rather a garden filled with hundreds of ivies and the most beautiful of creatures. That was my hope, but hope could only bring you so far. I got on all fours and rose my sound so that it faced the full moon and howled, the sound echoing throughout the entirety of the forest. The queen knew I was coming. If she knew what I looked like, she had access to all of me. With enough power, she could bring me to her right this second, so it was best she knew I was ready for her. Because if she wasn't going to bring me to her, I was going to go there myself. and I wouldn't leave until her head was in between my very fangs.